So I just wanted to say hi. Hi guys, I'm Tamra. And for those of you that I haven't met before, I joined the camera club 5 or 6 years ago. Steve Shining invited me. I had some images in the fair and he was working the booth at the fair and he chatted me up and said, hey, you got some really good images here. Why don't you come hang out with us at the camera club? And I did. And most of the things I'm going to show you, I've learned from other members. They do workshops just like this, and I've learned from them how to do a lot of this stuff. Some of it's self-taught, but most of it, like I said, is stuff that I've learned from you guys, the members. When I'm not photographing and hanging out with you guys, I teach second grade and virtually, and we'll be starting going back with them on November 30th. So I'm super excited about that. So. Anyway, I am going to show you how to take an image through Lightroom. We did a whole series of these last year, and so I'm not going to really start at the beginning with the basics. I'm going to assume that most of you kind of know the basics. And then what I want to show you is how I would process this picture. And then specifically some new skills I'm interested in sharing is how to edit a picture on another platform in conjunction with Lightroom. So how to go in and take it into Photoshop and do some using their their stamping tool to take out some power lines or whatnot, because that tool is actually a lot better, in my opinion, in Photoshop than it is in Lightroom. So I want to show you that, and then I have another program that I'm gonna just kind of put in a plug for. It's not a free program. It's one that was, I think it was like $100, but it's a sky replacement program that I use, and I'll show you how to use that too. It's called Luminar. So those are my two goals for today, is to show you how to take a picture from Lightroom and do some basic adjustments and then move it into Photoshop to do some clone stamping, and then bring it back into Lightroom and take it out to Luminar to do a sky replacement on it. How does that sound? Any questions? Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Let's see here. I wanna share. Ooh, they changed this a lot since I've done this. Okay. I don't think you need my sound. All right. You should be looking at my Lightroom. And I'm gonna move you guys over here. It takes me a second to get all set up because I'm gonna be moving back and forth between screens here. So give me just a second. So I have my Lightroom in front of me, but also on my second screen over here, I have you guys. So I'm pretty savvy on working this way since I do it at school. Looks like I'm not looking at you, but when I'm looking this way, I'm looking at you guys. The reason I do that is so I can kind of gauge my speed and how I need to, if there's any questions I need to ask. So feel free to raise your hands if you need to get me to stop or to ask questions, or just go ahead and turn your microphone on and jump in. I do ask that you keep your microphone off if you're not asking a question, and Dorothy might go ahead after I'm done talking and mute everybody. It's helpful to not have that background noise. One Zoom tip for you is if you just want to talk for just a second and you don't plan on being long-winded like I am, you can hold down your space bar and that will temporarily turn on your microphone while you talk, and then let go of the space bar when you're done talking, and then you don't have to toggle between turning that microphone on and off. All right, so I'm here just in my Lightroom. This is my actual Lightroom. Last time I think I was showing you a sample catalog that I had installed on my dad's computer. This is my actual computer, so we're in my Lightroom now. And I'm in the library tab. I'm gonna go ahead and import that photo. So I'll go to File, Import Photos and Videos. And I have mine stored on my OneDrive. So I need to navigate to my OneDrive. And I'm gonna go ahead and import both of these because this is a photo that Actually, no, I will wait and import that one when we're ready for it. So here's the photo that I plan on working with today. I'm going to go ahead and import that, and it'll create it in a new file in my library catalog. So here it is in its, well, it's under previous imports, but it has a file now right here, Lightroom class, under in my main drive. I don't know why it dropped it under desktop. No, it created its own folder for Lightroom class. So here's the photo we'll work on. In order to bring it over into working on it, I'm going to move it into the Develop tab. And that'll open up our new sidebar with our basic controls over here. The first thing I probably want to do with this picture is go ahead and straighten it out before I do any kind of tonal adjustments. And I actually don't think we got to this in our classes we were doing. Last time, I don't think I did anything in the transform tool. So the first thing I'll do is level out the horizon. I did show you guys how to do that. That's in the cropping tool. And I have the angle here. So I'll just click on that, and I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to straighten it out. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. We've got a little curvature going on there too, because once I go into the transform tool, it's going to straighten it out with a better perspective. So that looks pretty good, eyeballing it a lot better than it was. And I'll click done. Then I'm going to scroll down through all of these settings. Yours might be collapsed. Just a reminder that if they're collapsed, they'll look like this. And you might have to click that little arrow to drop down that tree menu. But I'm going to go down to transform. It's the tab that is called transform. And this is where we're going to take that keystoning off the building and straighten the building up. Since it's kind of shot from a lower angle, you get that narrowing of the building at the top. So this button right here is a guided upright tool. This is my favorite way to do an image like this, where there's multiple uprights for you to choose from. And what I mean by uprights is there's like a corner or an edge of the building that you're able to line right up on and know that, well, that part of that building's probably a straight part of the building. You can do it by hand on using all of these right here. So if I wanted to transform it vertically and start kicking that bottom out, you can see the sides straightening up. And I'm looking at this, well, it went away, but I'm looking at this grid line right here to see that that side is lined up. And you can kind of see that line is lined up for my vertical. And then if I wanted to do a horizontal, I can roll this around and it's straightening out my horizontals. I actually think that makes it look more skewed as it straightens it out. So I probably won't do anything to the horizontal. You can rotate your image in here. Same way that we did in the crop image menu, we can roll it right here. The aspect ratio will stretch and skew your image. You can see I can make this building really long and thin, or I can make it nice and tall. For this image, since there's not anything in here that has a standard shape or size, it doesn't make that big of a difference. So if I was trying to get this image to match a certain aspect, I might use that. I've actually used it to make a picture like, okay, I want this to fit an 11 by 14 so that I can print it and put it in a standard size frame. But the way it is, this little steeple on the top of the school is too close to the top. But if I move my cropping, then this is too close to the bottom. So I don't have a lot of options. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll take the transform tool and I'll change the aspect ratio to get that. Even though it skews the shape and size of the building, you wouldn't know it unless you had seen the beginning, or unless there's some feature on the building that it needs to be a specific length or size. Like if there was a person standing right here in this doorway, then that would absolutely look skewed because that person's going to look long and skinny and stretched out. But since it's just a building, it doesn't doesn't stretch it out that much. Am I explaining this well? Because it's hard for me to gather feedback right now. Thank you, Lynn and Lori, for the nodding and the feedback on that. I appreciate that. What I am going to do though is I'm going to, I'll show you scale to an X and Y offset, and then I'm going to reset it. So if we look at the scale, it just is kind of like zoom, not this zoom, but zooming in and out. You can zoom in and out on your image if you want to crop in or out, keeping the same aspect ratio that you set up in this cropping tool. And then X and Y offset is it shifts it left and right. I don't know if you can see it moving, so I'll make it a little more dramatic, but it shifts it to the left or to the right. Again, you could get that same effect by using the crop here and moving it left and right. So far, so good? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and reset that. Oops, I reset everything. I didn't mean to reset everything. Let me go back in here and roll my, make it a little bit straight at least. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I jet ahead? Okay. So let me go back down to my transform tool, and I'm going to use this automatic upright, the guided upright. When I click on it, it's going to want me to, oh, it turned it. It's going to want me to identify some uprights, what are some things in the picture that should be straight. So I'm going to take this hashtag, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to click right at the top. I'm going to hold my mouse button down, and I'm going to drag down into the bottom and then unclick. And that's going to tell it, hey, I want this thing right here to be straight up and down. And I think on this, you get to pick 2 verticals and 2 horizontals. Let's see, I'm going to try to get right on the edge of this building on this corner. And my mouse has something on the mouse pad. Awesome. I think it's right there. Okay, so there are 2 verticals. Now I can also do some horizontals, and I don't know, sometimes the horizontals look funny, but we'll give it a try. Oh, that looks really good, actually. I like that a lot. So we've taken our image from being all skewed and crooked to now we've got it straightened up. We've got some loss of the image up here, so that limits us in how we can reframe it or crop it. But since it's just blue sky up here, that's pretty easy to recreate with a clone stamp. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with that, and I'm going to leave my image, oh, I want it to be, whoops, not that, I want it to be 11 by 14. So I'll go ahead and, like I said, that doesn't bother me that that's up there because that's easy to clone stamp in. That's a decent, decent cropping there, I think. I am going to see if I have anything if I back it off. I could back it off a little bit so that it's not as zoomed in, because again, this white area that we're gaining down here is the landscape in front of it and on the side here is pretty easy to recreate with a clone stamp tool. So I might actually zoom it out a little bit farther because I thought that original cropping was a little bit too close. And I'd like a little bit more space around the building. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. Any questions? Okay. So now that I have it kind of cropped, I think before I did any Lightroom adjustments on this, since there's so much missing in this picture, that right now would be a good time for me to take it over into Photoshop and doing some clone stamping in there. I am going to do just a little bit on the exposure so we get a little bit more of the detail in the foreground here for some clone stamping, and that's up here in my basic grab that exposure, roll it up just enough to get those details down there in the foreground. All right. So to take this into Photoshop, I need to be in the Develop tab, and I'm going to right click on the image, and I'll have the option of Edit In. And then when that opens up this new menu, it shows me all these options that I have of plugin programs that I've installed that I could use to edit in. I just want to go to Photoshop, so that's this top one right up here. Once I click on it, it's going to launch Photoshop, and depending on your processing speed in your computer and video card in your computer and a lot of other stuff, it may open up right away. It may take a few minutes. Mine opens up pretty instantaneously. I just got a new computer this summer, so it opens up pretty fast. Unless you're me and Dorothy and it opens it up and it says, oh, you can't do that anymore. Did you ever get a hold of anybody to help you, Dorothy?
Oh, I figured it was the program, and I took the Photoshop latest version off and it corrected it.
Yeah, I think I did something similar. It was something about the new updates didn't run well.
Yeah.
Okay, I know how to do like 2 things in Photoshop successfully, so this is not the place to ask me a lot of questions unless it's about clone stamping. So when you go in and do clone stamping in Lightroom, you'll want to use this tool right here. And if you hold down the button, it gives you some other options, but I just want the regular old clone stamp tool. The circle that you see is the size that my stamp will be. That's the size of the area that I'm going to be selecting. You use the.
See any of that.
Oh, you don't see Photoshop, do you?
No, you're still on.
Okay. I know why. Hold on. I have to move my webcam just a second. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I say that about 7 times a day. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, I have to stop my sharing in between when I toggle between programs, because it doesn't just let me share my desktop. I have to share a specific program. So I'm gonna have to toggle in between programs when we switch. So you'll have to bear with me for just a second. This is Photoshop. Okay, now you see my image in Photoshop. And the clone stamp tool is right here. This is the tool I was showing you, right over on the left side in the toolbar. If you hold it down your mouse button over that little icon, it'll show you the 2 choices for that icon. And I'm using the top one that just says clone stamp tool. The little circle is the size of my selection tool. And to change the size of that, you use the bracket keys to make it larger or smaller. And that's pretty small for what we're doing, so I'm gonna make it bigger. I think that's probably a good size. In the way that the clone stamp tool works in Photoshop is you're going to take part of the image, copy that part of the image. So if I select this part of the image right here, it's going to copy this part of the image. And then I'll paste that part of the image up into this empty area. As I move down and paste from this top right corner and move down and paste it in here, the area that I selected right here is going to move along with it. And I think it'll demonstrate what that looks like as I actually do it. In order to select an area, so I want to tell this image that I want you to copy from this tone and this color of the sky right here. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and it gives you this little scope little icon, and I click the mouse button once to select that area. Once it's selected, you let go of the Alt key, and it'll go back to however big your selection tool was. Now I have that spot copied, and I can paste it up here into my gray area. I'm just going to start up in the corner and bring it down. And you can see the plus sign that showed up, that hash mark that showed up, that's showing you now as it moves around that that's where your selection is moving from. That's helpful because sometimes if you're working in a small, tight area, you might need to go back and reselect your tone again. You might keep saying, no, I want this tone, and then go back and click, I want this tone, and then go back and click. Because as it moves, like if I had selected this area right here, as it moves, I'm getting into the top roof of the building. I don't want that to be in here, but I'm gonna go ahead and fill this all in with sky. That top part, as I moved up here, the original wasn't there, so there's nothing for it to move from. So I need to go down and reselect my area. And then I can fill it in. So I filled in the sky. Now I'm going to go down and start over here filling in the bottom part of the picture. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit for this part. And might take that down in size just a little bit. I'm going to select this area to start with. And I'm going to paint it in down here. And as I'm going, it's going to move along. So it's going to catch all the changes in the tonal ranges, the changes in the textures. If you have any patterns that are clearly repeating, you'll want to go in and do some reselecting. Like this right here looks like it's repeated over 3 times. I'll go in and fix that because I think that looks funny. This one right here too, I think that looks funny. But I'm just going to get it in roughly, and then we'll go back and fix it. Spacebar, holding down my spacebar gives me the hand so I can move my image. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go right here to finish this. So here's one of those times where I have to go back and I'm reselecting this area again because I'm running out of room. Make those bushes blend in. Up here at the top, I'm going to need to be a little bit more precise to get that edge. So I will reselect the horizon line here and then recreate that horizon line. And did we get the sky? I think we did. So now we have the picture filled in all those empty spaces that we had that we took off when we straightened it. I am going to go in and change some of this down here. I feel like there's a lot of repeating patterns, so I think I'll just select this bare grass over here. Cover that up. I'm going to come in here and cover this one up too. And then these two also. So there's a little less repeating pattern in there that way. I kind of don't like how this corner turned out either. I feel like those bushes kind of turn into mush down here. So I think what I would do is I would go in and grab a part of the bush that had a defined line, and I would reselect that area, and I would come over and put that defined line in there. I think that looks a little bit better for that separation of the bush and the landscape. I also feel like the landscape has a lot of repeating patterns here. So I might go in and mess with that a little bit and see if I can get it to look a little bit better. Put some of this yellow or grass over it. It's a little better. If I was gonna ready this picture for competition, I would probably go in there and I would do a little bit more detail in this clone stamping. I'm noticing some repeating right here that I don't really like. And the judges will call you out on that. They'll spot it and they'll say, hey, this was clone stamped. I can tell because look, this bush repeats 4 times. So that is something that judges will notice. While I'm in here and have this in Photoshop, I want to take a look and see if there's anything else that I want to clone stamp out of it. You want to do kind of everything that you want to do in one platform at once, and then do the rest of it. Do the rest of the stuff in the other platform. You don't want to go back and forth a bunch of times, because once you go out of Lightroom, everything that you've done becomes permanent. You can't go back and change it. So that's why I only did the straightening and cropping of this image before I took it into Photoshop. Had I done a bunch of other adjustments on it, if I decided later on that I didn't like that adjustment or that it needed adjusted a different way, I lose that starting point and that capability. So that's why I haven't done any other adjustments in Lightroom. I am going to go in and take out these power lines with the clone stamp tool here in Lightroom, and nothing else is really sticking out in my eye. Maybe this right here, these boards that are sticking up off the roof, that would of course be photographer's own opinion there. I think I'll take them out because I think it takes away from the image, but that's just my opinion. So I'm going to start by going in here on this power pole. Luckily I can't see the lines, so I don't need to take out the lines, but I'm going to take that pole out. I'm going to grab the horizon as close to the pole as I can without getting the pole, because there's some details in the landscape back here that I don't want to lose. So I'll hold down that Alt button to grab that. And then I can paint it right over the top. Oops. Get that out of there. Grab the landscape again. So every time you see that crosshair that looks like a, I don't know, what's that called? That thing. When you see that thing, that's me holding down the Alt button and reselecting my spot that I'm going to paint over it. That kind of added a little hill into the landscape. I'd go back and make that perfectly flat if I was submitting this for critique. But I'm kind of doing the speed show version of it tonight. The other spot I wanted to go in and fix is, I think I want to take that out now that I zoom in. I'm questioning it though. I don't know. Again, I would say it's up to you guys, whatever your preference is, if you want to take that out or not. I am going to take it out. I'm going to grab the clone stamp right from the edge of this roof because I want the roof line to line up. And then I will put it over the top there. Carefully paint that in without losing the roof. As the clone stamp, the reason that second image is showing up and ghosting in there, you can see that right here where it's ghosting in, is because as I move my cursor over and start painting in, remember that selection area is moving too. And originally that spur was coming right down right there. So it moved over the top of it and now it's painting in that spur. So what I need to do now is go select a new area. Since I've got the roof line in there, I might select an area with this roof line, the diagonal roof line, so that I can go in and be a little detailed right here. So I am going to go ahead and grab, I'm going to zoom in actually, because then I can make my brush smaller. There we go. That looks pretty good. And then come out here. That doesn't bother me that it ghosted another image there because that's easy to get out with this sky. I'll just select the sky over here and get those right out now. I kind of messed up right there and got it a little too close, but again, I would go back and fix that if we were working. So now when we go back and look at the whole image, I think that's a lot more pleasing. Took out some of those distractors, took out that telephone pole, added in the part that we took out with our crop, and took out that piece that was sticking up. So now I'm ready to move it back into Lightroom. Do you have any questions before I move it back into Lightroom? Okay. To move it back into Lightroom, I just click on the file button and just click save. All you have to do is save. It'll automatically save the changes as a new file in Lightroom. Once that's done, I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen and bring back Lightroom. So I will do a stop share. Share screen. Here's my Lightroom catalog. And there it is. There's our new image. You'll see down in my, are you guys seeing this? No, hold on.
Not yet.
Sorry. There you go. There it is. And you'll see down in the film strip, this was my original image that we started with. And here is the Lightroom or the Photoshop image that it brought back in. It changed the file extension to a TIFF. It's still a raw file. And as far as I understand, all of the raw data is still there. If there's someone that knows better than I do, please let me know. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and do some basic corrections on this. I really like the sun shining up here. I want to make sure and highlight that. The ground down in the front is pretty bland. That foreground is pretty bland. It's going to need some dodging and burning done, probably maybe some saturation. So I just start again, like I told you guys in last year's classes, excuse me, I just start at the top of the adjustments and I work my way down. So we kind of adjusted exposure on it already when we had it on this image. You'll notice everything is reset back to 0. So anything that we had done prior to taking it out into Photoshop is all reset back to 0. The effects are still there, but you've essentially now imported a new image. So I'll go ahead. I think that this could use a little bit more exposure, bring that front of that school up. And add a little bit of contrast, not too much because I don't want to lose those colors. I would maybe, looks like a little bit of highlights in that. I'm not, in this particular image, it has a really pretty boring looking sky. I'm not too worried about that because I have a plan to take it out into a sky replacement program and put a better looking sky in there. So I'm not going to worry so much about those corrections that I make in the sky. I'll bring some shadows up so you can see inside the schoolhouse. That made a big difference there. I think I'll bring that. Looks good right there. That looks good. I don't think that I need any, maybe a little bit of texture and maybe a tiny bit of clarity. Nope, I don't like the clarity. No clarity, no texture, no dehaze. I think, would recommend maybe bring the saturation up just a little bit in this picture. Don't go crazy on it, but that's just 15 points of saturation, and I think it looks a lot better. It brings out some of that warmth. And I scrolled back up to the top. I'm gonna go back up here to my temperature, and I am gonna warm it up. Ooh, that's too much. I'm gonna warm it up a little bit and then go back and take that saturation off because I like the warmth better than the saturation. There we go. Doesn't that look better? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Your preference. That might, some people might say that's too much saturation. It doesn't look right. And that's just a smidge of saturation. But for where I'm going with it right now, I think that's okay. I can always take it back off if I decide it's too much later. Going into the tone curve some more with our highlights. I just play with these. I just roll them until I see what I like. Once you see how they kind of affect one another, you'll get used to being like, oh, I changed the darks down here. Now I need to go up and bring those shadows back in. And to be honest with you, I'm not changing a lot on my curves. I think that looked pretty good the way it came out. I'm gonna leave it just like that. I'm not going to do any specific color saturating. If you wanted to saturate specific colors, like if you wanted to go in and try to just saturate that red, you could grab, oops, that's hue. You could grab that saturation and you could bring, that must not be colored red. Oh, it is. It is. You could bring that red up. It doesn't look terrible. Being there, I know that it's not that red, but maybe I'll split the difference because that does bring out a little bit of color in our picture. You could do the oranges too. There, you could really make those oranges look funny if you wanted to, but I'm gonna leave them where they're at. Let's see, this is a new feature in Lightroom, color grading, that I'm not familiar with. Moment of honesty, don't know that. For my sharpening, I'm gonna pick probably right in here to zoom in on. Put some sharpening on it, put some masking on it to smooth it out. That looks pretty good.
Tamra,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question? What is masking? What does that do?
So the way I understand it is if you think about when you're painting and you paint without masking tape, you get a little bit of a bleed out. And so the masking tape makes you have some straighter edges. So and sometimes it can make it look too smooth, but I'll show you a dramatic so you can kind of see what it does dramatically. And where you're gonna look is like right along these edges where it's gonna pixelate. So if I go back into my sharpening, and if I sharpen it a lot, you can see it gets like a fuzzy edge. And I can probably zoom in more too. Gets that fuzzy edge. You can see it in the shingles here. It gets fuzzy. And I would never put 150% sharpening on an image just because it makes it so noisy like that. But as you mask it, you can see that grain go away. But now if I zoom all the way back out, Laura, you'll see it looks mushy. It looks painterly. It doesn't look natural. So I wouldn't push it all the way. Your luminance noise reduction kind of does the same thing, but that makes it even more smooth. So what I like to do is I look at it zoomed in a ways like this is, and then you're going to have some noise. That's just, the image had some noise in it to begin with. I'm not going to try to take it all out because I think it looks fake. But I look at it zoomed in, I say, okay, that's a happy medium I can live with. I zoom it back out and I just make sure, does it look natural? Does it look natural? Does it look, or does it look muddy like I you know, sloshed a bucket of water on it and everything ran together? So that's my second grade explanation of what masking does.
Thank you.
Tamra?
Yes.
Hey,
Hi, Tim.
oh, yeah. I was just going to say about the masking.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to know what masking does, just take a photograph that has a lot of clouds or blue and trees, or a portrait would be good. And if you slide the masking all the way up, as it goes, what stays white is what's being sharpened. And those are typically, like you said, the edges.
Mm-hmm.
And what masking does is it will mask the sharpening away from places where there are continuous tones, like sky or skin tones. That way you don't make people's faces look gritty.
Yeah. So it
Or
doesn't.
you don't make the sky look gritty. Masking will mask the sharpening away from that.
Gotcha.
It's easy to see if you use a portrait or a lot of sky and tree and just slide the masker back and forth and you'll see what it does. You have to hold down, don't you have to hold down Alt or something to do that? Or Option? One of them.
Not in Lightroom, I don't think.
Well, I think if you want to see the masking though, you want to see the black and white.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Slide that mask.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
Yeah, Alt.
Okay, now
Alt
keep
plus-
holding Alt and keep on the little button.
Yeah.
And slide it a little bit. You see, what's white is being sharpened. What's black is not.
Oh, I have
And
so
when you
much
slide
sticky on my
that,
mouse pad.
you can see that it will not be sharpening anything in the sky. And if you slide the masking feature even more, you'll see less and less of the building being sharpened. But you have a lot of detail in the building, so you're going to see a lot of. There you go. You see what I mean?
There's
Yep.
that's a good one.
That's
So
cool.
that's how
I
you
didn't know
can
that.
see where your sharpening is actually going.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. Hold on.
I can also see up here where I didn't get my sky all covered up.
Yeah, I saw that little line appear up there where something wasn't masked.
You can't tell.
Anyway, that's what the mask. Oh, one other comment. You said something about the TIFF file.
Yeah,
When it goes back to Lightroom as a TIFF,
yeah.
that's not a RAW.
It's not raw.
A TIFF will save your layers,
Okay.
but it's not a RAW file. It's now a TIFF. It's no longer RAW.
So when it goes out of when it goes out of Photoshop, is there a way to keep that raw data?
Well, the RAW is in your old file that you still have. That's your camera RAW.
But
once
now
you
I'm
convert
working.
it to a TIFF or a PSD, it's no longer a RAW. You don't have the RAW.
So when
It's not a RAW file anymore. It's been converted.
right, when you save it out of Photoshop, can you save it as a raw file?
No, because once you leave Camera Raw or Lightroom Camera Raw, you are now entering Photoshop, becomes a PSD.
Okay.
I usually send mine back to Lightroom as PSD files. I just keep my Photoshop files as PSDs, not TIFFs, but that's just a choice.
Yeah, that's probably just what the default was. Why do you do PSDs over TIFFs? Is there a reason?
Because PSD is a native format for Photoshop. And when I go in and out of Photoshop, if I want to take that file back to Photoshop, I just work in PSDs.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
when I'm done, I export what I want to use
Sure.
as JPEGs. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no, no, no. I appreciate it. I'm learning stuff from you, so thank
The
you.
mask thing is handy.
Tamra,
Yeah.
Tamra, I have a question for you. You haven't yet, I don't see you using your histogram. Do you use that at all when do you look at it at all? Because there's something that I think Harvey and I both do that we do right up front of most images.
Okay.
And it really does make a difference in what you can do with a sky or what I'm seeing in your histogram is that you've got a spike right at the whites.
Yep.
And you've got that going off the right side.
Yep.
So what you do is you go down to your blacks and whites where you have your down underneath tone.
Yep.
And you hold down your Alt key, and then you slide your white slider back and forth until you move that white off of the edge, if you can. See how bright that is?
Yeah.
And you may have to go -100 in this image. And it just
Sure.
brings everything into what you can see.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
you do the same thing with the blacks in the image so that you get as black as you can without going off the histogram.
Yes. Yep.
You gotta fix that later.
Do you
But
So
know, Rosemary, if you hold down Alt and double click on the white, it will automatically set your highlight level at the limit. Do the same on the black, it'll automatically set the black.
where do I
And if
click?
you do that, then you'll find that you can move the exposure slider a lot more without blowing things out, because that moves midtones.
That didn't work for me.
Pardon?
That didn't
okay,
work.
that may be you may have a more advanced, well, I know you have a more advanced Lightroom, I believe, than we do. So that may be a newer feature.
This is just the Creative Cloud version. So the subscription that you get with Adobe Creative Cloud. That's what this one is. So it's the most up to date.
Yeah, ours is not the most up to date.
Okay.
So Tim may be correct too, because they maybe have enhanced our method.
Sure. Sure. So for this particular image, I don't care that the sky is blown out. I know it's blown out. I know it's all the way to the edge, but I don't care about that in this image because I'm going to replace that sky. I'm going to take the sky out and put a completely different sky in it. What I would do in addition to your suggestion is I would probably go in and I would just darken the sky, because I do happen to know from processing this image before that if I darken that sky, there are a few wispy clouds back there that'll come out, but not enough for me to be happy with it. So I'll put a new sky in it. Does that make sense? Okay. The only other thing that I would probably do to this image is I would probably go in and do some dodging and burning. So that's in my adjustment brush tool. And let's see, I might do let's do some dodging and burning first and see how that goes. So I've opened up the adjustment brush tool. It's got clarity selected. I want to select, let's do some dodging first. I want to select dodging. That's going to lighten some specific areas in my image. That set my exposure to 25%. So I'm going to stick with that and see how it goes. I might need it a little bit darker. We'll see. Lighter, not darker. If you hold down the space bar, you can zoom on a specific area. My zoom is set huge. I'm going to reset my zoom. That's good. I pushed my computer screen a long ways away so that my camera wasn't so far up my nose. And now everything's like so far away, so I have to go like this to see everything. So I'm gonna do some burning up here under these eaves. And when I first learned about dodging and burning, Roger Dubois was teaching a Lightroom class, and he was saying, you know, you wanna dodge the areas that are naturally lighter and burn the areas that are naturally darker to show that contrast. So I noticed that the sun is kind of hitting this side of the arch, so I'm just gonna go in and brighten that up a little bit. And then I'll do that down here on this arch too, to kind of just make that one show a little bit more. Maybe these edges here. Oh, you could really see that one come up. This one here. As I do my dodging and burning on a photo, I change the size of my brush here and there just so that I want to follow whatever size the area that I'm dodging or burning is. I would probably dodge this just a little bit. Brighten that up naturally. And then let's see, this side over here probably too. This bush, I'm gonna try and add some texture to this bush too by lightening the areas that are naturally lighter. Look at that, it totally just gives some texture to that bush. Maybe I might lighten the tops of these bushes in here, lighten these areas. That looks a lot better. The other thing that I would do if I was going to really go in with some detail, the other areas that I would probably dodge and burn are some of these boards. I would go in and I would probably burn that board in, burn this little corner down here. Maybe some of these shingles I might burn, dodge, whatever I'm doing, you know, making them lighter. It really just adds some texture to the image. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. My space bar didn't catch. There we go. See, I said it again. That's not what I wanted to do. That's my catchphrase for 2020. Distance learning. That's not what I wanted to do. So I don't know if you guys can see the difference that's making, but I feel like that kind of made some spots in our building just kind of pop out a little bit. The other area I would do some dodging is down here in the foreground. Just make some lighter areas to show that texture. And then the opposite of that, ooh, that one looks funny right there. I don't like that. That's better. The opposite of that, we would go in and I'm going to do a new brush, and I'm going to go in and do some dodging or burning now, which is darkening. And we'll do the opposite. We'll go in and we'll just, and our goal when we're dodging and burning is to get some texture. So I don't want to go in and really burn these, like the dark window here or this darkness up here, because that's going to just turn it to black. What I want to do is like this green here that is already kind of darker, make that a little bit darker so that it adds some texture in there. The undersides of these weeds, and I think that's a little too dark. I'm going to take that down to 20. And that looks better. Add some texture into these bushes, darken those darker areas. I'm not going to darken anything on the school building itself. I think it has some darks in it already. There, I think that looks kind of good. Darken this so that it blends a little bit more. And then I think, if I remember correctly, I might have gone in and done another correction. Oops, I turned that off. Of some saturation right in here. Just to kind of make that paint that's still left on the building pop a little bit. I had it set to desaturate, so that didn't do anything. There, that looks pretty good. So there's just some basic adjustments. That's what I would probably do for the most part to this picture. I also would go and change the exposure up underneath that bell tower. So that's another brush stroke, and I would just go in with that exposure. And I clicked exposure, but I think I want some shadows to come out too. So I would lighten up the shadows there and then paint in there and get a little bit more detail. That's probably too much. That looks better. So that you can see some details up in there. Okay. How are we doing? What is my time frame, Lynn? What time am I supposed to be done by so I can gauge my speed here?
I was thinking 8:30, but as long as people are interested and
That's
you
good.
have a voice.
That's good. How's everybody doing? Does anybody need a little break before I go into sky replacement? Some people are nodding. Yes, a little break, a little 5-minute break. Okay, let's come back at 8:05. That's 6 minutes. I'll go refresh my drink and go to the bathroom, and we'll come back and I'll show you some, and this is going to be called Luminar is the program I'm going to show you.
And I might have to leave early. This is Lori.
Okay.
If I do, it wasn't because I was not interested anymore.
Oh, it was so boring tonight, wasn't it, Lori? Okay. So I'm still in, sorry, just a second, out of Lightroom into a program called Luminar. And I do have, let's see if I can get to the chat. Well, before we leave, I have a link to the Luminar website in the chat so that you guys, if you decide you want to check it out further, you can. So I'll share that link to that program in the chat once we're done. So just like when we took this picture out into Photoshop, we're going to right click and we're going to go down to that edit in option. And I'm going to click on Luminar 4. Luminar 4 is the program that I'm going to go into. So as soon as it opens in Luminar, it takes just a second to transfer it over into that program. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll reshare in Luminar. And as I said before, oh, this didn't happen when we shared in Photoshop. You have a choice of edit it with the Lightroom adjustments. So the stuff that we've already done, I definitely want to keep the stuff that's already there. Or edit a copy of the original file. That would be without the stuff that we've done on there, or edit the original. I want it to edit it with the adjustments that I've already done. So now I'm gonna wait just a second while that opens up in Luminar. And my computer's doing a lot of things, so it's gonna take just a second. Running lots of resources here, but it's cooking right along. Once this opens up, I think I will, what?
I think edit with Lightroom adjustments takes you back to essentially camera raw. If you want to edit the TIFF that you were working on, you need to edit a copy or edit original.
No, this has worked every other time. What happened is something happened to my catalog. It moved. Let's see, Luminar catalog for, oh.
Have you looked at the new sky replacement tool in Photoshop?
No, all I know how to do in Photoshop is clone stamping.
Oh, okay.
I don't use Photoshop a lot at all.
That's one of the, I haven't looked at it either yet. That's one of the new improvements in the latest version.
Yeah, nope, I'm not familiar with it at all. Okay.
Supposed to be really good, but I don't know.
Let me bring up my Luminar. I forgot you weren't seeing that. I just did a couple things that you couldn't see, so I apologize, but basically all it was I'm in Luminar now. This is my Luminar program. All that you missed was a couple of advertisements for their new program popped up that I closed. So essentially this is what Luminar looks like when you open it up. And this program has a lot more features than what I know how to do in it right now. This is, you could use this as a standalone photo editing program, or you could use it as a plugin like I'm using it as. I think it was like $99 on a special. I don't remember exactly how much it was. But it boasts its artificial intelligence capabilities. So that is kind of what this program boasts. And I specifically bought it for the sky replacement. That was what I wanted it for. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you that. And then I feel like if I start showing you other things in here, you're going to have questions that I won't be able to answer, and that scares me. So I think I'm just going to stick with showing you the sky replacement this time. So the basic control you need to know is that all the way over on the right, you have the essentials, you have the creative mode, you have portrait mode, and then you have professional mode. And what I want to do is go into creative mode. So I'm going to click on the little paint palette here, and it's going to open me up a new menu. And I'm going to go into the artificial intelligence sky replacement menu. Oh, and all these, well, like I said, I wasn't going to show you the stuff that I didn't know about, but all this stuff down here is all looks that it can change it to. You could put sun rays in, you can put, there's a spot in here somewhere where you can put in like birds in the sky, you could put a spaceship in the sky. Looks like you can put in fog if you want to put in, did I say sun rays already? Those are kind of fun to play with too. I think sometimes it makes my pictures look fake, so I try to keep them looking a little bit as realistic as I can push the limit. But I just play it. If you decide to check out this program, play with it, run with it. It's kind of fun. Here is where I'm going to pick my sky. I just go into sky selection, and here's all the skies I can choose from. There are places that'll sell like sky packages where you can get new skies to add into it. I haven't experimented with that. I feel like what is given here is good enough for me. So I usually start, yeah.
Look at the very bottom of that window you're in. Can you scroll right to the bottom? I just want to see. Oh, okay. You can load your own skies apparently.
Yeah, if you have an image where you're like, oh my gosh, I love the sky in this image, you can load that also. I haven't experimented with that, so I don't know how it works. I've only experimented.
Okay, I just wanted to see that part. Yeah, I don't have.
I've only experimented with the ones that are already preloaded in the program. So I like the blue skies. I like the dramatic skies. It's all kind of a preference. So I'm just gonna start clicking through them and showing them to you. There's a blue sky that looks pretty good.
Not bad.
And like I said, it's just artificial intelligence. So, I really like that one. So you don't really need to tell it, I'm going to remember that's Blue Sky 4. You don't need to tell it, oh, this is the sky, or you know, you don't have to select any edges for it. Okay, so far Blue Sky 4 is the one, okay? That's the one I like the best. That one's pretty cool too. I think it cuts through in a weird place. Let's see. I thought you could move it, but I don't think you can. That one's pretty cool. I used one of these, if you saw my picture of the Grand Prismatic Spring, I used one of these skies on that. It was a bright, middle of the day, harsh, bright sun that just looks completely blown out in the back. And I'm like, this picture is gorgeous. I can't put that sky on there. So, ooh, that looks kind of cool, doesn't it? It kind of matches the tone of the day, except we've got some sun hitting the bell tower here, and that doesn't match. That one's kind of cool.
Question.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the window, looking right through the school in the back.
Up here or this one?
That one. Do you know how to make the sky flow into there too?
I noticed that. Usually it picks up on that, Tim. It missed that. So What
I
I,
noticed that's not changing. Yeah.
what's that?
Oh, I noticed that doesn't seem to be changing.
Yeah, no, I noticed that, but it's catching this piece that goes through
Goes
the
up
bell tower
there.
here. Yeah, what I would do is if I found one and it didn't, I would go in and I would either take this back into Photoshop and clone stamp in there just something out of the sky to make it match the same tones, or I might go in and burn that down just so it doesn't stick out, because that caught my eye right away too.
Yeah.
It's got some sunsets in it. That's pretty darn cool. I like that too.
Ooh, that works pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, that one, it looked like it might have caught it because it looks like it changed the color temperature a little bit.
A little bit yellowish. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know if you want me to click through and show you all of these, but I think I'm just going to pick one. I like that blue sky 4. I don't know. I kind of like that dramatic one too. Was it this one? No, I think it was the second one. No, what one was it? That one. I like that one.
Oh.
So I would, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna pick that one right there, and then I'll hit apply, and that's all I'm gonna do in Luminar at this point. I'm gonna hit apply. I can change some stuff in here too. Horizon blending, you can see, if you look at the horizon, you can see it's making it brighter at the horizon or darker at the horizon. So if you don't like what it originally did with the horizon, I thought it did fine. I find that I don't usually need to play with these. It's pretty, whoa. It's usually pretty good to start with. I did not know that existed. So you can move it like a little bit. And then relighting the scene, you can see it's darkening the whole image or lightening the whole image. Again, I thought it was fine where it was. I don't even know where it was. Oh, my computer's lagging. Didn't it just like look really bright? There we go. So there's some fine tuning that you can do to it as well. I liked it when I just had what it did. I like that the best. So I will leave it at that. And then you can go down here, and these are all the Luminar looks that you could add to it if you wanted to. They're just styles like any other presets. They're like presets. I was trying to come up with that word. And some of them are really fantastic. Some of them are pretty creative. I don't necessarily like the looks of them. But what I wanted to show you was that sunset. So now I'll probably take this back into Lightroom or Photoshop, I mean. No, Lightroom. I'll take it back into Lightroom. I said it right the first time. But I'll click apply, and it'll do the same thing Photoshop did. It'll automatically take the changes into Lightroom.
Tamara, when you're done, I've got something to inject.
Go for it.
Okay, right now, this week, Photoshop has a Photoshop virtual summit where they have about 40 programs going on Monday through Friday. You can register for free and look at them online whenever they're available for 48 hours. They have one called Custom Night Skies from Day Scenes, and he goes through the new sky adder part of Photoshop that does what you're doing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Now, you don't get the controls that you've got there. You just you pick out your sky and here you go.
Yeah.
You don't have the adjustments that you have, but it's a freebie. And if somebody's interested in this Photoshop Virtual Summit 2, if you Google it, you can get in, sign in for free. And one of the things, if you right-click on the program, and it is possible to download it. So
And
that's
that's the
all
Photoshop?
what's that?
And that's the Photoshop?
It's Photoshop Virtual Summit
Okay, cool.
2, Roman numeral 2.
Thank you for sharing that. So while Harvey was sharing, I was just doing some more adjustments after Luminar had it. I decided it needed a little bit more exposure, so I brought the exposure up. I gave it quite a bit of contrast, and then when I brought up the exposure, it kind of blew out my foreground more than I was comfortable with. So I went into the brush tool and just put a mask over that foreground. So I think that is a comfortable place to start. I mean, not start, stop, unless you guys have other questions. And again, I wanted to share that link in the chat. I had on my list of other things to show you is how to add a watermark. Is that something that you guys would like to see before we wrap it up? I see some nods. That's pretty quick. I'll show you how to add a watermark. So to add a watermark, you go to Edit up in the top.
In Lightroom?
I don't know, in Lightroom, yes. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. You go to Edit and you select Edit Watermarks. And it opens up a new window for you to work in. And up here in the top right corner, it says watermark style text or graphic. If you have someone who has created a watermark for you, you'll find that in graphic. And you'll go and search for it once you have that open. I have a logo that a friend created for me. It's right here. So if I was gonna put that on there, I would pick it out of here. But I wanna show you how to just add a text watermark for now. But this is where, and you'll do the same steps after that, but this is how you would do it if you had a watermark that someone had created for you. So the text box is down here and I can make it say whatever I want. So if I'm not gonna erase that copyright because I don't remember how I did that. I think it's command and then like some numbers to make that copyright symbol, but I don't remember how to do that. So if I wanted to put just copyright 2020, it automatically put it in this bottom right corner and it automatically gave me that font. I can change my font. Here's all your choices of fonts. I think you kind of have to know what one you're going to pick because I don't think that you can see a preview of it. So you might need to know which one you're looking for to begin with. You can preview it just by clicking on them. If you want to click through them, I just happen to know that's one that I use for school a lot. So that's one I don't mind. I can make it bold so that it sticks out. I can make it italic. Whoops. I guess I can make it bold or italic, but not. Okay, I clicked italic and it took it back to normal.
Well, then there's bold italic down below too. So.
Yeah, I saw that. And then the alignment within the text box, left, right, or center. I feel like it takes up the whole text box, so it doesn't matter. You can change your color. You can have it move to a darker color or a lighter color. I think for this image, I'm going to keep it white because I'm going to keep the watermark in the foreground, and that white contrasts pretty good in there. The shadow, the opacity is how, oh, I did not know it even had it. Okay, I don't use this. I use a graphic, so this is new to me. But you can put a drop shadow on it, it looks like. And then the shadow can have an offset, or you can take that shadow off. It's totally up to you. That's cool. I didn't know it could do that. This opacity will have it either be see-through or less see-through on your picture. So sometimes I want the watermark to kind of blend into the image. Other times I want the watermark harsh on the image. It just depends on my image, but I think that looks pretty good for the opacity. Here's the size. If you roll on the, if you just roll this, I feel like it changes too dramatically. I try to just type in a number because I feel like that's easier. I like 9. 9 is a good size for my watermarks. I don't know why I picked that number, but I just like that number. And then the inset, you can move it a little bit. So as I move this, you can see it moves from being right on the edge, it moves it in a little bit. And then the vertical inset's the same. This is your anchor. So this is where you choose where you want it to be set at on your picture. So I've selected the bottom left corner. You can put it right in the middle. You can put it in the bottom center, top center. You have those nine points to choose from. You can turn it if you want to run it up the side. Maybe you want to run it up the side. You can turn it. I keep mine on the bottom, usually in one of the corners is where I put mine, but it's all personal preference. I don't want it upside down. So for that watermark, I actually liked it better on the other side. No, I actually do like it on this side, but I want it a little less opaque. All right, so once I've got my watermark set where I want it, you click save and it's gonna ask you to name your watermark. I started out naming these like bottom right corner white or top left or, but I came to find out that each picture needed such specific settings with the opacity and the size and the specific placement that I started naming them whatever the picture was. So like this one, I would just call it Govan. And that's what I would call this preset because that's the name of this picture, Govan Schoolhouse. And I would create that watermark. Now we're back into Lightroom. To get the watermark on the picture, we're going to export it. So to have it stamped on there, like to share it on Facebook or to print it, you have to export it. So I'll go to my file and export button. This pops up the export window. You can tell it where you want it to go to. I have a specific file called watermarked photos that I save my watermarked photos to. That way, if I'm looking for something, that's just how I did it. The part that you want to work on here is, my computer's lagging, I'm sorry. Watermarking. So here's the watermarking, and you have to have the box checked, otherwise it won't put a watermark on there. You'll want to uncheck it if you're exporting your photo for Camera Club because we don't allow watermarks in Camera Club. But if this is for Facebook or for printing a photo or some reason, you would check that box. And then the drop down you'll find is where you'll find Govan, where you saved it. So I'll just click right on that. And now it's going to use that template that I saved when I edited the watermark. I'll export it into my file. And then when I go back into my OneDrive where that's saved, you can't see this. I wish, this is weird. I wish that, I think Teams does a better job with screen sharing, but I'll show you in just a second. So if I stop share and then share screen, I think it's, this one. I don't know if you're going to be able to keep seeing this. So can you see my file of all my watermark pictures?
Upper left corner.
Oh yeah, it's right there. Thank you, Tim. So can you see it? Did it open or do I have to reshare it?
It hasn't opened.
It's
No.
open.
Yeah, it opened for me, but I'd have to, okay, let me reshare so you can see it. Here it is. So there it is now with the watermark ready to go for Facebook. All right, any questions for my presentation tonight?
Can you go back to the watermark screen where you made it?
Yep.
It seems to me that a preset should not be image specific. A preset should be a certain style and you just apply it to whatever image you want. You shouldn't have to say Govan for the preset for that. You should be able to say, see at this point where you say save,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You could call it
Maybe
whatever
the
you,
watermark, there's something, I'm not sure what it is. I've never worked with watermarks, frankly, I don't know.
yeah,
But
you
it seems
could,
to me that you should be able to save different styles of watermarks.
you
A
can,
black
you
one, a
could.
white one, or
I
it's
could,
not to a Govan image. You should be able to use the same watermark
No.
on several images.
you totally could. You totally could, Tim. You're 100% right. I could call this anything I want. I could call it bottom left. And then anytime I go in and export a photo, I can use that bottom left preset and it will always put it, it'll always put it in that exact same spot.
With that typeset and
Yeah,
with,
exactly.
okay.
Exactly, yes. I just found that I like to tweak them a little bit for each photo. And so my preference is to save it as the photo name and use that specific one. But you could absolutely just create a few that you're going to use and just keep those ones in there and call them like watermark 1, watermark 2, whatever
Yeah,
you
bottom
want.
left small, bottom left large, bottom left
Yep.
white, you know.
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah, I see. What you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you wouldn't want to use the, what do you call it, the font that you used? Name it the font?
You could do that. You could,
Then you would,
Yep.
you know, you say, oh, I like that one. You can go back
Yep.
and say, I mean, immediately, well, I like the one that I used for the Govan. Well, that's the whatever font. And then
Exactly, you
take
could,
you
yeah.
to that.
Yep. So maybe if I showed you a little bit of how I actually use those, it'll make a little bit more sense. Let me pull up Lightroom again. Make a little bit more sense as to why I choose to do it that way is what I mean to say. I kind of reset you guys though, so I have to move you back over here.
While you're pulling that up, I have a little question about the Luminar thing.
Yeah.
Have you applied the sky like that behind trees and things?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm
Yep.
surprised at how quickly that came up. Is if that's an AI issue, they're usually computer processing intensive, and it comes up right away.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, and I just bought a real beefy computer too, Tim. So I'm running a solid state hard drive and a ton of RAM. And,
all right, that explains it.
so that helps. That helps.
It's quick, yeah.
So when I go in and I'm doing a watermark, so I go in and I use my graphic that I have had created for me. And I have a black one, I have a black one, I have a color one, and I have a white one. And so depending on the image and where I'm putting that logo, I might not want the same. What I ran into is I had too many versions of bottom left, too many versions of top right, too many versions that I didn't know exactly what I was going to get. So for this image, if I wanted to use one of these logos, I would probably go with the white one, just looking at what's in the corners. My computer's lagging. This is kind of a darker area. This is kind of darker. This is darker. The black one might look okay down in this corner, but I think I'm gonna get a better look from it with the white one. And actually, I think I'm gonna put it in this top right corner anyway. So I'm gonna pick the white one. And then once I choose that, it automatically placed it down here in the bottom left corner, but I want it in the top right. So now I could just say, okay, this is my top right watermark. This one's going to be called top right white. But on this particular image, I want the inset about there, and I don't want to drop the vertical inset because I don't want it to get into that cloud. So I only want my vertical inset to stay where it was. I don't want any vertical inset. So I'm going to leave that alone on this one. Or what I might want is, well, on this one, I want it a little bit smaller because I have that cloud there and I want to get it off the top edge. I don't want it on that top edge. So I do want a little bit of vertical inset. But again, I don't want it to merge with that cloud. I think that's going to look funny. So I had to make that one a little bit smaller. The other thing is I like to change my opacity on each one because each picture has a different background that I'm setting that watermark against. That white looks super stark against that background. But as I change the opacity down, you still see the watermark just fine, but it doesn't have that stark opacity or that stark white on it for the opacity. So at that point, I've customized that particular watermark to this picture based on what the background is. It might work on another picture. I might be able to say, okay, top right, and use that on another picture, but it might not. I might, I like to have them more fine-tuned specific to the picture. So in that instance, I would save this as Govan. It's going to say that's already in use, so I'll call it Govan 2, and then I can export it, and it'll have that watermark in the top right corner there. Is that a little better explanation as to why I choose to name them that way? I think you're absolutely right. If you just want to use 1, 2, or 3 generic ones to apply to your photo, that's fine. That's fine too. You can have just those couple presets. You can name them any way you want. It's totally flexible use.
It's probably a personal decision how anybody wants to, how they want it to look. I would think a lot of people that are signing what they might call art pictures might want a watermark signature. You see these signatures all the time. You might want those to be consistent.
You might, yep.
Well, you just use the same one all the time.
You might still want to change the
Brands
color.
do.
Yeah, you might still want to change the color or the opacity, or again, the inset. Where does it?
Yeah.
Where does it hit the picture there? And I don't know how to make those signature ones. So if there's anybody in the camera club world that could recruit somebody to teach us how to do that, that would be a cool education night.
To make the which ones you said?
Your signature?
Oh. Well, it's probably just the same as importing a graphic. I don't know how they do it, but
Yeah, I don't
somebody
know either.
writes them or uses some font or something.
Yeah. The one I have.
They make them into a brush or a graphic.
Yeah, I paid for the one I have. She created it with a some program. I don't know. I don't have any clue, but I'd love to learn how to do it. So
Document quality, but wouldn't be artistic quality.
yeah. Anyway, any other questions for me?
I think there are lots of YouTube things on making watermarks. I've seen them. I've looked at a couple briefly. I've never spent a lot of time at it.
Definitely.
Should be easy to find.
Thank you everybody for humoring me for an hour and a half tonight. I hope you learned something. And if you have ideas for things you want to learn how to do in Lightroom is kind of my forte. I don't speak a lot of Photoshop. But if you have questions about, oh, I was going to give you guys that link. Before we wrap it up, I want to give you the link to Luminar. And I have it bookmarked, so give me just a second.
While you look for that, Tamra, I want to say I learned, so thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad. It's the hardest thing is to teach without receiving that nonverbal feedback that you get by being in a room with people. It's so different. So I appreciate the head nodding and the thumbs ups and so
your teaching skills are certainly shining through tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In the chat is the link to the program called Luminar 4, and it's by a company called Skylum. So it's going to take you to a Skylum website. And right now they have a new program that they put out called
okay,
Luminar AI, and that's their new one that they're trying to get everybody to upgrade to. But Luminar 4 is the one that I showed you. All right, I'm off to do my pictures for club. Submission deadline is 3 hours and 21 minutes away.
Me
I better
too.
get on that. And I have to get to bed because I have to work tomorrow. So
Okay, thank you everybody for coming.
thank you so much. Thank you for arranging it,
Dorothy, for your hosting.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.